title of the show, Shadowing, is very interesting. It refers to watching or learning from someone else, but it can also mean examining our shadow side. How did you prepare the show and learn from or work with the shadow of a master like Picasso?
It was quite hard to title this show because a lot of the shows I've done prior to this have always had a link to the anatomy in some respect. But I felt shadowing, in terms of the content of the work, thinking about, as you said, the shadow side, the kind of literal sense of the shadow, but also the shadow within us and how we are all kind of have our own shadows and it's our own autonomy. Links to the work and I think specific paintings, or the one we've got behind us. It was important to also with the shadow is a sense of ground, the sense that these figures are grounded in time. They're not elevated. But then I think about the titles I've done in the past, there's always a split meaning, and shadowing, it was about the observation. You're observing, whether that's you're observing history and kind of time and how things repeat. I also think about figuration and the context of painting now in reflection to, for instance, Picasso, but further than that.
The largest works in the show are the Desire Line. This body of work consists of 3 paintings, 2 of which are part of shadowing. Each features a linear group of figures. There is tension. You've said you feel the need to respond to the conditions of our time in human, not political terms, but to quote you, "It is in my psyche to respond." Can you talk more about this impulse and this specific body of work? And are there any historical reference to these works?
I think it's important to talk about the title for these works as well. So a desire line is when, for instance, you're in a field and you see a fox trail, or you get these animal paths, and then you get the human interventions through a field. It's a sense that there are a natural path that's been formed. The paintings are almost the opposites of that. They are figures in a line trapped within the circumstance, and there's almost a sense of claustrophobia. And you know, I'm reflecting upon the time we're in. When you look at where we are in the world, we are the witness to a lot of things, and I felt like there was almost a responsibility to respond to that. I looked at a lot of historical references when thinking about the idea of the line. It's quite sinister, it's not very natural, but it's something that occurs in a lot of history and a lot of photography. You know, you've got the Last Supper, which is the sense of this line presented, but then you look at someone like Singer Sargent doing the depiction of World War I with the soldiers all holding each other in the line. If you're going to bring it to Picasso, you also have the Guernica. There it's all presented in this linear form. With the title, it's the opposite of that. There is this sense of freedom within a desire line, whereas these works is redundant of that.
There are 2 new small portraits included in the show. These are a continuation of an ongoing body of work that began with flash thought. You call them faked real. Can you guide us through the process and how the idea came to you in relation to the other works?
There was a moment where I started to extract the portrait, out of the figures in these large-scale works. I wanted to remove the focal point of the face and focus on the bodies within these oil paintings, and I think it was an important moment where I could isolate it and have it almost a series within a series. And I see them as almost anti-portraits. There's always a fascination with who is the personality, and you don't want to mislead the viewer. These are all curated and collaged images that have no existence other than the paintings themselves. So when thinking about the portrait, I was thinking about the anti-portrait, I was thinking about the kind of faked personas, avatars, AI-generated profiles. But also with that, there is a sense of soul that happens. I think we naturally can attach an element of meaning to stuff that is devoid of meaning, and it doesn't mean anything. The portrait became that within this larger body of work.
In the Pigeonnier, there is a more abstract, gestural, silver and black painting. There are no figures per se, but the body remains present. It is part of the bodysuit series. Can you tell us more about this series?
So I think what I really like to do is split the studio up, and this has happened over a series of years now, and isolate areas in which I can stretch the process and stretch my inquiry. And it's about widening an inquiry into figuration. It was first these phantom paintings, which was the monochrome pieces, but like this one here, then the portraits, extracting that and allowing the body to breathe within these larger scale works. So then the portrait became its own inquiry. And then working with Sharon Ayal and approaching abstraction also became a line of inquiry, but all worked in connection with everything. So, you know, they would all be working in tandem and simultaneously, and they all feed the kind of the marks, the body, it all feeds in. But the entirely abstract piece, although it doesn't have a representation of form, it's entirely physical. You have the charcoal with gravity that moves as I apply it. What I really wanted to do is retain the kind of human anatomy, speed, whether it's slow or fast, and freedom of the void, if you know what I mean. And it's really important for this show to have all kind of 4 aspects of my lines of inquiry in the studio to be presented as a body of work and not separate.